Everyone, another common argument used by Christian apologists to support the practice of biblical slavery is to cite Deuteronomy 23:15-16, which reads, "You shall not hand over to his master a slave who escapes to you from his master. With you he shall stay in your midst in the place that he chooses, within one of your gates wherever is good for him. You shall not mistreat him." The common argument made is that this verse would allow enslaved people to flee their masters, and so any slavery that existed was purely voluntary. In his book, Did the Old Testament Endorse Slavery?, Dr. Josh Bowen asks the important but obvious question, concerning whom is this law written? He goes on to argue that while it is a possibility that this verse could be referring to either Israel debt slaves or foreign chattel slaves, there are problems to either interpretation. First, if he was Israelite debt slave, we would expect him to have land to return to, but verse 16 seems to indicate that he did not have property. Second, although interpreting this verse as referring to a chattel slave solves the problem of property, it is odd that this chapter does not include any punishment for the abusive master who would have caused their slave to flee. Dr. Josh admits that while this doesn't negate the possibility that it's referring to a foreign chattel slave, there are other options that make far more sense. He argues that the text is most likely referring to a foreign slave who escaped slavery in a surrounding foreign nation and is now seeking refuge in Israel. It is this third option that most scholars adhere to. I will now share the scholarly opinions that Dr. Josh cites in his book. Pause to read. And so we see that the current scholarly consensus is that Deuteronomy 23 verses 15-16 is not evidence that slavery was voluntary, but rather that it was a prohibition against Israelites returning foreign slaves to their foreign masters.